What's up, guys? Going back to the Mr. Gloat podcast. Will be the final episode for this month. As I said before, and I'll say it again, we're going to go around 7 episodes this month. 7 for September and 7 more for October, just for some breaks. Whatever winter comes sooner than later, we're going to wait and see. And if winter does come, I might go back to 10 episodes. We'll have to wait and see. But today, guys, we're back with the Mr. Gloat podcast. Today, we are here. Considering I'm taking this calmly as I can, because this month has not been too kind to me. But what hasn't been too kind to any of us, as this recently, during this third week of boxing, has been dropping down so much ridiculous, controversial, and just so much terribleness that I just realized I have to go to the store and get some new shampoo for my hair because the other one is not good for my hair. So, but we'll do that after this episode. We also have some other title fights going on, and with only a couple shows we're going to review today, this is going to be nothing much exciting for me to think of because there's a lot to this than meets the eye. So today we've already started off with a bang, but unfortunately with some whimpers going on, the month of August is not over yet. On August the 29th, we have some other fights going on here as we speak. With a lot of other fights going on with other fighters. Like August the 29th, we have fights such as Dubois and Moore. Great Caroline Dubois. We have Raymond Cardenas having his recent fight next week. Lara versus Ornelas. We also have Yumbi versus Perez, which that would be another interesting fight to look at. And with a couple other undefeated fighters, such as the interim or boxer from the super middleweight, Lester Martinez. He's taking on Plantic. Noakes, Baron, and Baranchek. Baranchek, former WBO super lightweight champion. Michaela Mayer versus Cameron Chantel, undisputed champion. And Moses Atama versus Phil Pergovich. It's going to be a doozy. It's going to be a doozy to think of when you look at from a perspective point of view, to think that all these fights are going to happen in different venues. They're not going to happen the same night. We're just going to take it easy and understand what we're looking for when the time comes. The time is coming where nothing is going to happen yet, but we just hope that it won't get worse for us to be disappointed. Unfortunately, with a couple shows going on here, from Jake Paul from the Serrano versus Manzur pay-per-view fight, to Rolando Romero versus Teofimo Lopez. Let's talk about the DAZN fight with Tom Brown of TGB Promotion and Teofimo Lopez of TakeOver Promotion. And I didn't know that he was involved with promotion, as Teofimo Lopez. Fun fact, this is Teofimo Lopez's first ever promotional fight. And it almost destroyed him. It really did. Because this right here was shocking. This one really got me a little bit shocked because of the outcome, but the real story is just getting started. This is just ridiculous. So the entire fight card only had no more than probably 4 fights on the show with everything going on. And most importantly, with all of it being said, 4 of the fights on the show were already live from DAZN. The other 4 matches, which was one of a 4-round fight of Aldo Blancas, won his third pro fight against an 0-1 fighter, 1 draw. Joseph Brown from Canada scores his 8th victory, also a 6-round fight against a 3-2-1 fighter. Oh yeah, and Aldo scored a second round knockdown in the 4-round fight in the second round, but still, points decision. Benjamin Johnson, who recently, during his last fight in his 8th pro fight, unfortunately got a no contest when his opponent was unable to continue due to an accidental headbutt at the 2-minute mark of their 6-round fight. So it was no contest last May. Again, good win, but 6-round decision, nothing much. And Marco Romero, scoring his 15th victory in 2 years of pro during his start in 2024, defeats Kahil Mitchell, 6-1. A good first round knockout in 2 minutes and 33 seconds. And unfortunately, that is the knockout of the night award there because that's the only knockout there. Sorry. But again, that's not the point we're going to talk about. Today, we are going to talk about the 4 fights live. Now, how about we get to the highlight? Now, I did saw the YouTube highlights of the first couple fights. Third fight, barely. And what shows here for Carlos Utria taking on a tough dude named Israel Mercado. This fight right here is one of the few fights that you can almost legitimately say that this guy might be a hype job and he might be a bust. And this isn't going to be the only time I'm going to talk about this because in the Jake Paul show, when we get to the Jake Paul pay-per-view match, which happened a couple of days ago, a day before this show, there's a lot of busts and a lot of horribleness. This show right here is far better than that. But there's so much controversy. Like I was thinking to myself, there better be some controversy here. Boy, oh boy, I really did. So the first few rounds of the fight were pretty tough for Mercado and Utria, starting off just digging in some punches here or there in the first rounds of the fight. They were just getting started. But Israel managed to lead off his left punch pretty good. Of course, the first round was nothing much but an easy win for Utria, but then around rounds 2 and 3 were the close of Israel. He was in domination mode. In round 4 was a really close round for both. Utria, in my opinion, had round 4. Whatever you think who had round 4, that's up to you. They were just landing some heavy shots during the last minute of the round. And then in round 5, which the highlight shows that Utria tries to go forward, and Mercado throws a couple punches, wide punches, fakes some punches, not even close from hitting Utria's glove, and then just lands a right jab in the below the belt. Referee doesn't care, attacks him back, and just ducks away. Like, I'm surprised that the referee didn't really question that. And by the way, his name is Tony Weeks, but still ridiculous enough. That was actually pretty much of a round for Israel, pretty much. So yeah, you have like 3 rounds to mostly maybe 3 rounds to 2, maybe. But at this moment, it just gets tougher than ever. But I almost had it for mostly Utria. But there were some close into those rounds. And I really thought Utria had round 5 as well. So it was tough as nails. It was pretty tough. So I had it 3-2 for him. But anyone could almost think that the score would be 3-2 for Carlos, or not Carlos, but for Mercado, or 4-1, believing that they might think that he won rounds 4 and 5. Or maybe it was rounds 4-1 for pretty much Mercado. So I think it goes to show you how controversial you can think about this, because this is a 10-round fight. Nothing much will happen. But then we go to rounds 6 and 7, and Carlos batters him back. He finally gets the rounds winning. He's putting in better work. And it seemed like he was going into an easy points victory. And these guys were throwing heavy bombers. He even tries to throw a huge uppercut. And Utria was, and misses completely. And then in the highlights here with 1 minute left of the fight, which I'm looking at the highlights right now to double check, Mercado scares him off, throws out multiple punches to get some heavy duties, and Utria scares him off with a couple left shots to seal the deal. Again, most of the reality of it was tough enough. So pretty much, like, anyone could see it this way. You can think that maybe Utria was winning 3-2, and now it's 5-2. He's already had 5 rounds won, pretty much. Or maybe you might think maybe now it's 4-3 Mercado. So that's what I thought when looking at this. Anybody's game. Just saying. It's anybody's game. Now, round 8 was a pretty tough round, and I thought Mercado might have had that round won. There was a moment during the final minute of that 8th round, but Mercado just comes back, hits some heavy duders. This was actually a pretty entertaining fight. Don't get me wrong. It was pretty dangerously good for what it was. And coming to the 9th round, Mercado just outboxed him like never before. And coming to the start of the 10th round, Chris Mannix, by the way, the person downstairs, outside of the ring, he had the fight for Mercado 86-85, 5 rounds to 4 for Mercado, giving him rounds 2 and 3. Okay, he did give 1 and 4 for Utria and 6 and 7. So not bad, respectable, and of course 5 and 8 and 9. So again, it's anybody's game who you think won the fight. Just saying, it's not that much. But again, Mercado was winning the majority of the rounds, so I could say that this fight would have ended in a draw than what it is. And man, oh man, I'll be honest, the championship rounds of these last rounds were so dominant for Mercado that Utria just lost all his energy. Like the Colombian with the white trunks is getting outboxed in the beginning part of this 10th round, and Mercado is putting in all the energy, all the uppercuts, and Utria is staying alive out there. Like, don't get me wrong, this was an entertaining fight for what it is. The last 3 minutes were so entertaining with all the beating up. And I think Tony Weeks was warning Mercado for low blows because he keeps telling him to keep the punches up. But the real story comes in after the round is over. So the 10th and final round, easy win for Mercado. I had 95-95. Whatever the judges saw were different. So Steve Weisfeld, which we're going to have a lot of controversy for him. Oh, and by the way, I'm not going to get into the judging scores for the announcers and their unofficial scores as much. Maybe one more time on this DAZN, but when we get to the Jake Paul thing, just ignore it. Steve had 96-94. Chris had it 96-94 for Utria, Mercado the other. But then Patricia Morse had it 97-93. There's no way Carlos won 7 rounds. Maybe 6 rounds. I doubt it because, like, even though like 4 of the 10 rounds were utter dominance for Carlos, 4 of the dominant rounds were won by Mercado easily. And in my opinion, even 3 rounds were easily won by Utria. So, but again, I just didn't see that. And it's kind of weird because when Lennon Jr. announced still undefeated, keep this in mind, Carlos Utria, who is 14-0, Israel Mercado is 13-1-2. So when Lennon Jr. said winner of this bout by split decision and still undefeated, Israel Mercado jumps up like he won the fight. For some reason, he's not even undefeated. And he's celebrating too early. He didn't hear still undefeated. Like, that's ridiculous. And Utria is somewhat confused, but when they announced the winner, Carlos Utria, he's in relief mode. He's won. One of his trainers picks him up like a baby for some reason. And the announcers, which I'm not going to talk about the announcers as much on the Jake Paul show, maybe one more time, a couple more times on this show, they didn't believe that Carlos won the fight. This is going to be one of the few other moments of this episode where I'm just going to realize this was legit BS. And it was. Again, I'm going to give this fight 4 stars out of 5. It was a great fight. And even without the controversy, if the right winner won, it wasn't terrible for what it is. Victor Santillan versus Gary Antonio Russell. 2 fighters in their 30s for the WBA Interim Super Bantamweight Championship. This fight was just utter domination. There was nothing much to talk about. They went on into the fight easily. And on paper, Santillan won his last fight last February. He gets a great 16-2 fighter. Great victory for him. Russell was trying to recover from that utter headbutt injury by technical decision he lost a few years ago. He came back in 2024, another fight in 2025, a couple wins that were not that good. So this fight here, trying to now make it to a comeback to become champion is what he's trying to do. So that's the buildup of this fight. But like every time Victor Sentien tries to go forward, Russell is on the defensive line. Like he's outboxing him in multiple rounds. And Victor, every time he's trying to go forward, he's trying to hurt him so much. And again, I didn't like this fight as much. There was so much clinching, so much grabbing. Every time Victor tries to go forward, he can't get nothing done. And Russell goes forward, he throws in punches and does everything. The minors of the rounds were interesting, but I was just looking for a knockout in this fight more than ever. Again, the clinches were a problem. It was a sloppy fight, but not all boredom and terrible for where it was, but grabs and clinches. But however, coming into the 12th and final round, they go forward. Victor, as he always does, he's trying to figure out a way to find a way to get a lucky punch to win this fight, which would be great. He goes in, tries to throw some barrage of punches in the body, keeps his head down, and out of nowhere, Russell lands this perfect right to his noggin of the head, which makes Victor stumble his feet, and his legs got split. Like he split his legs after punch, which made him stumble and hit the canvas. But the referee counts it knocked out because he might have saw the punch landed, and Victor gets back up at the count of 6 or 7, and the last 2 minutes and 40 seconds of the fight, which this was during the first seconds of the round, it was just utter clinching. It was utter brutality. It was a huge wrestle of dumbness and just trying to survive the fight. He didn't care about fighting back. Russell just dances around winning the fight, and the judging scorecards read it. 2 of them 119 to 108. One of them had 118 to 109 by unanimous decision, Gary Russell. I'm going to give this fight 3 out of 10. It was an intense match. They were running first gear, but they were like playing bumper cars while going into third gear in this entire fight, more than third gear. It was legit. I was going to give this a 1-star match, but the 12th and final round, due to that knockout, almost made you wonder, was this going to be a great ending finale for Russell here? But it just wasn't meant to be. But again, I can't really say for certain. It was a good fight, but was it a good fight? Not, but for Russell winning the title and getting back for contention, it kind of is. Like, even being in the super bantamweight, he is ranked number 21 right now. So again, nothing much of a win. Great sportsmanship for his opponent. Victor did okay to try to make something intense of this fight, but the clinching and other craziness was just so bad. Yoel Hernandez and Francisco Verón. He's a 17-1-1 Argentina fighter taking on a Cuban 10-0 fighter. This 10-round fight was legit ridiculous. Both guys just coming in, and again, I don't know what Steve Weisfeld thought this fight was 95-95 even. The other had it 98-92, 99-91 for Hernandez winning this fight. Like, don't get me wrong, the first couple rounds had moments of studying for Hernandez. The third round I saw did have Verón putting in a good close work in the fight as best he could. He did got the aggressiveness. It was a close, hard round to judge at moments in time. The fourth round was a good win for Hernandez. And coming into the fifth round with 30 seconds to go, Verón did throw this perfect left, which wasn't hard enough, but did send Hernandez stumbling to the ropes, protecting himself. And Verón wasn't even going for the finish. He was just throwing jabs and giving out everything in the finale of it. So the first half of the fight wasn't all terrible. And Verón, in my opinion, had the better round, won that time. Again, those were like the only 2 rounds I thought were close, because the last 5 rounds of the fight were utter domination. Squash for Hernandez. Again, clinching and deadliness. This is a middleweight fight we're talking about here, so I can't say much about huge grabbing on each other, but they were throwing heavy punches that someone could accidentally hurt each other by headbutt, and I was expecting it to happen. There were moments in round 9 for both guys just throwing heavy-duty punches in the finale of the round, but again, that's all you could see. It was a better 10-round fight than the last fight we saw for the interim WBA belt. And the final round of the fight ended with a bang. I had 98-92, but majority decision winner goes to the one and only belt holder, the new middleweight champion. And that is Yoaneli Hernandez. It was a good 10-round fight to win the regional belts, and again, not bad. Anyway, the final bout of this fight, Teofimo Lopez, his debut fight with a 68.5 reach advantage at 5'9", 147. He's a 29-year-old fighter, while Rolly Romero is 30 years old, 5'8" at 146.5, similar weight than his Ryan Garcia fight last year ago in Times Square. He's a 68 reach advantage. But again, when you look at his career and his utter knockout losses and his surprising world title wins he had, this would have been an easy fight on paper to say that this was a legit Lopez fight. Don't get me wrong. I was thinking this fight was going to be an easy squash match and probably far better than the middleweight fight. Even though I gave the middleweight fight for Hernandez 5 out of 10 because it was a half-decent fight, but it was a lot sloppier and nothing much to say, but not that entertainingly clean than the first fight on the show. This fight right here was utter disbelief. Like, I don't know what Rolly Romero did that night, but this might have been his best performance ever. Like, they come into the first rounds of the fight, and they are both landing each other like crazy. By the way, Romero is wearing out white but gold in the front and back of his trunks, while Lopez is wearing all white. So keep that in mind if you want to know who's who. It was confusing enough. Again, they come forward as this fight was legit. Like, Lopez comes into the first of this fight. But it was a good opener for both guys. I did believe Lopez might have had some finale at the end of the last seconds of the round, but I gave it to Romero. And then coming around the third round and even the second round were legit rounds for Lopez. Like, he was coming in with interesting shots. There were moments that Romero was trying to go for buy punches and such and pushing him back. But again, Lopez just found some marks in the round. And even in round 4, when Lopez got another close round 1 on himself and started landing out some legit great punching and such, it was surprising. There was a moment in the last 30 seconds of the 4th round where Lopez tries to go forward, and he does, and Romero just throws this perfect left hook. And it stumbled Lopez so much that I didn't understand how Romero didn't hesitate. Well, technically he hesitated, but I don't know why he hesitated not going for the attack or try to scare him off or give him a hard time. Like, that's how I felt when watching it. It just felt like something was up. Again, there was nothing much I could say about this other than how tough it was, but I could see that this was going to be a legit interesting fight. By far less. Like, it's not all terrible for Romero. It's just he is being trained by Floyd Mayweather, who is the trainer of him. So even though I'm sure Mayweather is trying to make some money off of this because of his fighter, because Floyd Mayweather is his trainer after all. And surprisingly, he's watching his opponent getting the best performance out of the fight. Like, in round 5, Romero comes in and just out jabs Lopez. And with only 1 minute left of the round, there was a moment where both of them start throwing these heavy jabs, and both of them stumbled but recover. And Romero puts out wild barrage of punches on him and heavy hitters and backs into the rope. The crowd are going ape crap because no one thought this was going to be a crazy fight for a win. Lopez stumbles to the ground and awards a slip. And then coming to the 6th round, Lopez comes out with his great performance and outboxes him. So after 6 rounds of competition, the first half of this fight, we have the fight 3-3. You can have it 4-2 for you can have it 4-2 for Lopez if you want to, or maybe 5. Or again, like this was a legit fight here. Like again, maybe anything necessary because these two are putting at each other like never before. And even though Lopez was doing interesting in some of the early rounds from the fourth round and such, which were depending on a round, whoever thought was going to win that round. And even though, with all by means necessary, because there were times that this was turning into a wild fight. It was pretty crazy for what it was. But yeah, we do get to the second half of the fight, and unfortunately, after round 7, where Romero seemed like he was putting in an okay work, he did throw an interesting punch out in 1 minute 45 seconds left of the round and did start scaring him off and putting out some interesting punches, but which that almost did give me a huge discrepancy of how hard that round, because I really thought Lopez did better, maybe Romero. So I almost had Romero barely just squeaked out that 7th round squeak, but you can think that Lopez won the 7th round. That's up to anyone else. But that would have to be the only round that was the best of the second half for Romero, because the last 5 rounds, that was it for Romero. Because at this moment, though, from rounds 8 to 12, Lopez comes in and outboxes a heck of a performance on Romero. And I will say, though, Romero is finally being off the defensive of the fight. Like in the 8th round of the fight, he has his glove like this, he's putting his like this, and he's just backing away and doing this and just trying to be on the defensive approach of the entirety from Lopez. And I don't think that was a good idea for him to do that from rounds 9 and round 10. Well, there were times I was doing it. Also, I could have assumed in the 10th round, I thought I saw blood pouring down Lopez's eye, but it must have been the shadows because the lighting of the area, and because sometimes camera angles don't show the proper, because their faces are not shown to the lights of their faces. Like the lights I have in my room right now are like the shadow. Like this is my shadow right here, and I do have light because of my hair here, so it's hard to tell if you can see blood or not. So I really thought Lopez was on blood. Also, in the last 10 seconds of the fight, Romero did try to throw a heavy uppercut and got connected by Lopez and gets pushed back to the ropes and escapes, which is crazy. There was another moment in the championship rounds where Lopez goes forward, tries to swing, and he loses his balance, and Romero goes in and tries to finish him off or even get a lucky knockout score like he did with Garcia, but Lopez gets nothing out of it. He's throwing and barraging him back with punches, and he starts dancing at the end, and the bell rings for round 11 coming to an end. And coming into the 12th and final round, Romero is just dancing around, escaping out, getting some body punching onto himself. He gets clinches. Again, they're just dancing away for the final of the round, and Lopez just gets it done easily. Pretty much, I had this fight 116-112, won by this fight for Teofimo Lopez. But again, it did make you wonder. Those final rounds made you wonder what would have happened. What would have happened? Because if there was a knockout in the 11th round, or any of the rounds in the championship rounds that Lopez might have effed it up, because he almost messed himself up in that final 11th round. Imagine if that was a knockout. Boy, oh boy. Shockingly enough. Because Tim Cheatham had it 116-112. Max DeLuca had it 115-113. Majority decision, Glenn Feldman, 114 even. But the winner and new welterweight champion, Teofimo Lopez. Crazy. But again, just imagine if that round 11 knockout came. And while I'm on it right now, Let's look at the box rec scores. Okay, so we do have the box rec scorecards here and the judges' scorecards here. And it did show that Glenn Feldman did give round 11 to Romero. And in the ninth round of that fight, Max DeLuca gave the ninth round to Romero as well, which kind of makes sense why he gave it there. Man, he gave it around 115 to 113 for that. Dang. And that 11th round scored, oh man. So if that was a knockout in round 11, then Glenn Feldman would have given it a 10-8, and the score would have been 114 to 113. And even similar to Max DeLuca, because that would have been a 10-8 score, and then it would have been 115 to 113 to Teofimo Lopez. It would have been 114 to 113 for Romero as well. And the other judge, Tim Chiefman, man, we would have, 113, the 114, oh man. So we would have almost had it 114 to 113 as well. Only favored for Lopez. So yeah, that 11th round, if Teofimo Lopez did stumble that hard and got knocked out during that final seconds when he went overboard, overconfident, man, we would have seen a wild split decision there, and that would have been his fault. So crazy enough. I will say though, even though the final rounds of the fight were not much, they were much, but they were squashes. I'm going to give this match an 8 out of 10 just for the heck of it. Rolly Romero put on an interesting performance, which was better than nothing. Like the first match on this show started with a bang, and the last match ended with a bang. The other two matches, in decencies, but not good. Again, I will say though, Teofimo Lopez, now a champion again. I really can't say much about that on the other hand. But again, there were times that he did show improvement. But again, Teofimo Lopez, I don't think this is a horrible fight for Rolly Romero. Even though two of the judges' scorecards did have it closer than you think, and one had it in my favor, but you could almost say maybe Teofimo won the fight a lot more. By the way, it is interesting because after the win of the fight with the crowd cheering for Lopez winning the fight, it is interesting because you have the announcers pointing it out. You have so much favoring the winner of the fight. And even the scorecards for each of them were really seeing this fight pretty much is favor for anyone else. So I didn't really think very much about anything about this entirety of a fight. Like there's some interesting moments. I could almost legitimately say that there are some great moments. There's some great moments here. I just think, in my opinion, there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. It really did felt like that there was a lot to be desired for this show. So, all in all, I really enjoyed it for what it was, and enjoying it was really great. So, it was actually a pretty great show for what it was. Even though the first match was legit controversial. But now we have another show going on. Let's get to the man of Serrano and our Manzur fight. So the buildup of this show is that Serrano is building her retirement this year, and she wants to break out Christy Martin and her legit record of 32 knockouts and 49 wins of her career. Serrano has that same record as well, only with barely a few less losses than, just a few less losses than Christy, because she has almost 10 defeats in her career. But again, there's a lot to this than meets the eye. It really felt like this entire show was turning into a huge problem. I had a feeling there were going to be some knockouts here or there for the show, and I really did feel like there was going to be time that there was something gonna happen. I really felt that. Um, the entire show did felt like there was going to be problems here or there. So I really felt that something was going to happen. So the show was going to start around maybe 5 or 6 p.m. or so, Eastern Standard Time, in my opinion. Build ups to the fight that they had Manzur on BetMGM stated that it was an 800 plus underdog for Manzur and a minus 2,500 for Serrano for her legit fights. It was just a normal fight for Serrano to win by easy victory, and that's all that mattered. So pretty much, there's nothing much you can say. So now we have to get into it as a legit fight for the show to start off boxing as a whole. So now we're putting ourselves into it with predictions and live televisions. They're into the ring walks for main event, starting off the build off for this show and everything going on with Jake Paul, the YouTuber turned boxer who has almost 20 million followers on TikTok. And this is also coming off live to TikTok. So this is like turning into a surprising circus of craziness. Again, there wasn't much to me for saying to myself that any of this was going to go well because there could be some controversial and horrific, idiotic moments. And I really, really felt that there was going to be a lot of stupidity going on behind the scenes. I really, really believed it. So, yeah, the first fight of the fight card starts off with a fight with Albina Modahanova versus Sheila Leisgang. Two undefeated fighters in the preliminary fight card starts off. They start with a bang. And with 1 minute and 21 seconds of the fight, Albina from Russia comes out with this legit fight. You watch the preliminaries yourself. It's going to be surprising. She comes out, wails on her opponent, and stays down, counted out at 1 minute and 21 seconds of the first round. What a great build-up to their first fight on the show. And even though it ended whimperly by Paula Barreda, who was a 6-0 fighter, takes on a 3-1 fighter. I think this was the preliminary fight as well. I think it was, depending if it was or not. But we're just going to have to see about that as we speak. But with the fights time going on here, going to try to double check. Oh boy, I can't get through this. Okay, this is going to be a pain in the butt for me to find, but okay. Well, this is going to be tough to find. I can't find out what the other fight was. I'm trying to look up again about the fight card event. Get to the fight card. I want to get to the fight card. I want to get to the fight card. Please give me a fight card. What happens if I do that? Okay. Oh, is this the one? Please tell me this is the one. Oh my gosh, this is not the one. Oh boy, tell me. Okay, this might be the one. Yeah, okay. So let's find out. So I'm on yahoo.sports.com where it has someone reviewing out information while it's going on live as we speak. So pretty much the beginning part of the match are putting out so much build up for this show as we speak. So, oh boy, get me out of this Lopez thing. Romero, I don't care about this. She's on weed, not this. Oh my gosh. Give me a second here. I'm just going to try to. Oh my gosh. Okay, just give me a second here. I'm just going to try to. By the way, none of this is on DAZN, by the way. So there's no information of this fight on DAZN, which is upsetting. And it gets upsetting when you see the reality of the stupidity for women's boxing. But I don't think it's their fault because I think when you're going to a big grand stage in an international stage for a live audience watching you, your confidence might kill you and you might not be a legit winner. So keep that in mind. Actually, the first fight on the show was Paula Barreto. Okay, so I was right. So the two preliminary fights was Paula Barreto defeating a Mexican fighter 3-1, scored a 6-round fight, and then the next one was Albina Maldaz Hanova, the first round knockout, which is the only knockout for a female boxer that night. But yeah, consider there's only 5 male fights and 7 female fights in this 12 fight show. It gets crazy. So by 7 o'clock p.m. at this time until 12 a.m. and even by the end of maybe almost 1 a.m., this entire hour-long show is crazy. I just wish, take some of the fights out of the show. There's no need for this. Like, I am tired that we're watching these fights at midnight, and I get it. There's long fights out there that we don't know if these fights are going to go to decision or knockout. But in women's boxing today, for Jake Paul, these fights are not going by knockouts. So it is trembling to see that. And I think you have to know that. So I hope we don't get to see any stupidity of this, because there's a lot of stupidity going on because of this. So I think we got to be careful. So the preliminary fights are over, and we get to the first bout starting around before 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We had to remain undefeated. Joycelyn Camarillo comes into the show after her utter victory by first-round knockout against Isis Seo last March, where Isis Seo got injured, taken out of a stretcher, one of the first few couple female fighters, just like Shadesha Green, who did come back a couple weeks ago on commentary, got injured and got carried out of a stretcher against her Lonnie Daniels fight. So Joycelyn at this moment is trying to recover from this as best we could. She comes into the fight and against 7-4 Ashley Felix, and the fight went on as legit with no problem at all. She comes into the fight. She put on a great performance, going 6 rounds decision. The problem is Joycelyn wins her 7th victory, but unfortunately she's not a knockout fighter. And I think that's the reason why the referee never stopped the fight on Isis Seo, because when you have a woman that only had 5 wins in her career, all by decision, comes out and beats the crap out of someone like that several months ago, it's ridiculous. So it is legit bad for what it was. But Joycelyn did prove herself. She came out and won the fight easily without no problem whatsoever. It was a great official victory for her. And then the next fight is Miguelina Hernandez versus Ayani Verduzco. This fight was an 8-round fight for unbeaten of undefeated fighters. The fight on this show was utter deadly. It was a deadly fight. Both girls were outboxing each other. They were putting on the works. But again, even though so-and-so had to go, the American fighter Verduzco proved herself that she is not ready in the big time. Like, she's 24 years old. She's ranked number 19 in the super bantamweight, and her first knockout happened in her 3rd pro fight, and that's about it. She had no problems in any of the fights in her career. In her first 7 fights, she was dominating the fights easily. And some of those fights were happening in casino fights in California, in Santa Ynez, or in Long Beach, or the Commerce Casino. And a lot of these fights were happening on Tom Wilfer Promotions, where the events are not that big or weren't crowded as much during her show. So when you take a woman that never fought in a big venue or in a big promotional stage like this, you can expect that you're going to have some butterflies in your stomach and you're not going to perform well into your career. So I think looking back at this, it was a tough, close bout for anyone. The first rounds were pretty interesting when Miguelian from Dominican Republic came out. And of course, here's the thing. Hernandez from Dominican Republic, with 4 wins in her career, she has 3 knockouts. Yes, her opponents might not have been that dangerous as much, but still, you do gotta watch out for fighters like that, depending on how they won by knockout. So she comes into the first round with craziness into her career. But Iana did come in as better as she could in the first half after that round and just managed to outbox her with no problem. By the fifth round, Hernandez did come out as best she could to win round 5. And by the championship rounds of round 6, 7, and 8 were pretty interesting enough. Like Iana was winning out the majority of those rounds until coming into the 8th and final round. Hernandez fought her as best she could at the end. I had the fight 77-75. The last round was pretty crazy as much as for what it was. Verduzco, in my opinion, won it. One judge had it as well, Zachary Young. And Zachary Young is a huge contemporary. Like, Zachary Young has a lot of judge scoring cards here, and he judged a lot this night. And there's going to be a lot of interesting controversy for me. Not much for Zachary because there's a lot to it. But we'll get to it later because the other fights on the show are upsetting for me. He favored it for Iana. Another woman named Carla Caez had it 78-74 for Hernandez, but Ray Armendariz also had 78-74, but by split decision, Iana the winner. Again, it was a good fight. For what it was a pretty close fight, and it was a decent victory for Iana. The next fight on the show is Nelvi Tiafak versus Salvador Zavala. The face-off for heavyweight contest. The 2024 German Olympian Nelvi comes in with 3 knockouts into his career. He's continuing to make it to the top of heavyweight prospect, while 7-0 with 5 knockouts. Salvador is one of his few tough opponents. So another interesting fight. This was a 6-round fight. Also, Nelvi was also born in Cameroon, so he's an African fighter as well. And he's had great moments. He started off boxing in Germany in 2025. He went to Quebec, Canada in September last year in his second pro fight when he won against a 5-0 fighter and won it easily without any problem. Came in January, went back to Germany and fought again in May. And now he's in America again. This time his debut in the USA against a 7-0 fighter. And I will say, though, he came in and obliterated him pretty much. By the first round of the fight, these guys were studying each other. They were putting in the works because, again, you have to be careful. Like, Nelvi, in my opinion, does have to be careful if he wants to make it through as best he could because we already have a German fighter that's a champion right now. If you think Adjei Cabello deserved it, which he did, comes in and just performs him out as best he could. Salvador is trying his best to get some great connection as best he could, to get some offense in and try to put in some good work as best he could, even after the second round. But then coming into the third round, as both guys are hammering each other, putting in the works, we come into the third round and surprisingly, not even a minute into the third round, Nelvi decides to finish it all. He's throwing body punches, hooks, and he turns him, Salvador, from one corner to another, grabs him, puts him in a clinch, and the referee breaks the clinch up just to wave the fight out, giving Nelvi the win. I don't think in my entire life I've ever seen a fight end that way by knockout, where a fighter is out punching his opponent and then his opponent clinches him and the referee decides to break up the clinch but wave the fight out. Again, Salvador was in a wrong state. He was having a problem. He couldn't recover as much as he could, so it was a good stoppage for him. And I think there was one moment in the fight, I think when Timothy Bradley or another fight where a referee broke up a clinch or something because he heard the sound of the final 10-second clap of 10 seconds left of each round. It was the 12th and final round, and the referee broke it up and said that's the end of the fight. He believed that his opponent got hurt. He was stopping the fight, and the guy celebrated when in reality the referee stopped it because he thought he heard the bell. Again, I don't think it mattered. I think Timothy Bradley was going to win the fight. Still, I don't know. I gotta remember. I gotta remember if that was Timothy Bradley. Still, either way, I'm sure some people might know what that fight is. It was a crazy stoppage, but still, this was a good stoppage. Salvador was not in the right state of mind that night. His record's down the drain, and Nelvy ranked number 135 in the heavyweight, but he's ranked number 14 in Germany in BoxRec. Still, good win for him for where it was. The next fight on the show for results is another fight which, oh boy. So, remember when I said Zachary Young managed to put out a little bit of controversy for some of the judging? Well, I can't say much about this one. Again, here's the problem. Like I said in the first fight on the Teofimo Lopez and Romero fight, where that 10-round fight when Utria was having problems with the fighter with Mercado and thinking to yourself, well, he might be a hype job, but again, he might not be getting used to the environment or something like that, which I did say about Ayana in her fight that night ago, where she barely won the fight by split decision in 8 rounds. I think the problem is when you put a man or a woman in a big event like this, your confidence could not be that good. This is one of the reminders that you have to put the seal of the deal here. So Guadalupe Medina, which now changes her name to Lupita, takes on Brooke Cibrian. And again, Lupita, I just call her Guadalupe. It's an easy name to spell. I spell her first name of this really embarrassing. But I'm going to call her Medina and her other friend, Brooke. These two girls in bikinis and weigh-ins. Brooke is not wearing an interesting outfit at all for a bikini. Guadalupe is wearing out a thong. At this moment, you can already tell that something fishy is going to happen. The problem is, Brooke, here's the thing about Brooke. Brooke is a 9-3 fighter. Her utter defeats in 2024 and 2025 against a 9-10-2 fighter named Talia Garcia was a terrible decision in her career. She could not take on a woman like that. It was ridiculous. And then months later, she lost against Gloria Munguia, which was a close fight, but those utter defeats were terrible. And then last May the 30th in Texas in El Paso, she took on Jessica Nuri Plata, who was a long-time legit dangerous contender, which was the same night where Lourdes Jures defeated Yocasta Valley. And unfortunately, this was the same sad night where, well, technically, I'm not going to get into it, which is when our Amanda Serrano defeated Cheyenne Hansen in round 2 by TKO, and Holly Holm, she lost her rematch. Again, yeah. Also a Jake Paul promotion, still. I think it was. What Jake Paul promotion was that? MVPW 03. So, yeah. So, of course, Brooke Siberian has already fought in this level of competition pay-per-view. And as for Guadalupe, the problem is her competition is strict. Like her last fight in November was against Tom Loeffler. Again, Tom Loeffler promotion does perform in these other events, but it makes it more easy for their opponents to fight. Here's the problem with Guadalupe. The thing is, her third pro fight was controversial when she bought her opponent in the shoulder and was out for some time, for a year, even after her fourth pro fight she did, fought again, and then had other fights going on. The problem was there were times that even when she defeated Ashley Felix, the same fighter we talked about with Ayana fight, the problem about that is that fighter was pretty tough and did put on a good show against Guadalupe. And Medina did prove it. It was pretty tough. And then she barely won a majority decision in October against a 6-3 fighter of Catherine Renee, and that right there was terrible enough. So, yeah, again, Medina barely winning these fights were hard for me to say that she was a legit competitor. I just didn't see her doing a good job. I just found this being questionable when I first saw this. And I went online and people on Topology were thinking Medina was going to win this fight on Topology. They were voting her as winning. It's ridiculous. In 2025, she wins a fight against a 4-2-2 fighter. No problem. She squeaks out a close unanimous decision by some judges against a 12-5 fighter in May last year ago in the Commerce fight by Tom Wilfer, which was the same night when Mizuki Hiruta defeated Carla Marino by a great decision for the Ring Magazine belt. And then she took on Ruby Gutierrez in August, which is also the same exact night where Mizuki defeated Naomi Cardenas, undefeated, easy win. I think it just goes to show you that even though now I'm finding it more questionable because now Mizuki Hiruta barely winning her 10-round fight, or she did, but managed to go 10 rounds against her opponent, May Solomon, last May in the Tower of Giza, which was the only fight I gave a 10 out of 10 on that show. I think it goes to show you going to bigger promotion events makes your confidence come from here to here. So I think we have to get used to the environment as best we could, which goes to show you how hard these fighters are boxing in this event. And because Gabrielle Fundora has been boxing in interesting events as undisputed, and Mizuki Hiruta not in bigger events as much in 2025 and barely shown on YouTube in those fights, yeah, I think it just goes to show you this is what you get when you see upsets that night. And now I'm starting to understand it. It's really tough. And seeing Medina barely win that fight was ridiculous enough. So I will say, though, the first couple rounds of the fight were a great start for Medina. She comes in, boxes her out with terrific punching and great starts. And then Brooke comes in and starts out in the third, enjoying success with queen right hands, this or that. Again, Cibrian was putting in some queen power punches in the first rounds of the fight, but again, this was just a start. After the fourth round, with a great start for each round for wins for favored, the other half of the fight were just nonstop. Cibrian was just putting in huge impacts, so much and all action pressure. She was in the front foot approach of the entirety with great head start. And coming in after those fights, she was in body punching, great modes, jabs. She was outboxing Guadalupe like nothing before by the distance. It was pretty tough for what it was. But again, I had a feeling this was going to happen. Like, I was upset that Medina did not take this fight seriously. I was mortified. I was upset about this. The last 6 rounds of that fight were utter domination, and I had the fight 78-74 after the end of the fight, and 2 of the other judges had it as well. Carla and Fernando Villaria, who also had it that similar score. Zachary Young, he gave it 77-75 for Brooke, which is okay. I guess he tried to make it close, but again, there was no way Medina won 4 rounds. There's no way. It was like, it would have been interesting if you would have saw a knockout or something, but again, Medina, this was an utter bust. I just, like, people think that this is going to be a great cherry pick fight, but when you go to a big event like this, it was terrible enough. Brooke Cibrian already fought in a Jake Paul promotion a few months ago, and this is what you get. It does upset me that you didn't really take it seriously, and it's going to get worse because it gets worse later on as we speak, because the next fight is a Brazilian fighter named Kino Marley versus Brayon Brooks, another Brook. Unfortunately, even though with Brayon Brook, who was a 1-0 fighter, 1 knockout against Kino, who was 2-0 with 1 knockout, I can't say much about this fight neither because it was a legit fight. It was an easy win in cruiserweight. Again, Brazilian fighters, there is one out there that's won a lot in his career, but not in great fashion. But yeah, this was an interesting fight for Marwi coming into the fight, dominating from jabs, putting in the distance, and even though he never let any power shots go in the fight, he didn't have to. He out punches out him so much in the fight that coming into this 4-round fight, it was only a 4-round fight. But again, it was pretty dangerous. Halfway through, after the second round was over, he comes into the third, lands out some rights, tops and bottoms, and he knocks down Brook easily into the third to one knee. He gets back up. Marley connects with short uppercuts and helps him finish the job. The referee stops the fight with that uppercut and other moments that I really can't say that this is another cruiserweight fighter, even for South America. But again, I'll wish Kino best of luck. He is fighting. He did fight his last two fights were 2-1 and 5-1-1 in December and June. So again, he did fight in June of Orlando in the Jake Paul promotions of MVP W04. So I don't know. This was a great victory for him. It's putting on him his confidence, but again, that's only half of it. And again, another 4-round fight. Guys, remember the time when Joey Polka defeated El Brook in the Misfits boxing fight? And of course, El Brook at the time would go on to become champion in Misfits. And then she went pro in her first fight against Van Zandt Page in that 5-round fight. And even though she scored a knockout against her opponent, she was getting outboxed and controversialized, and the fight ended in a split in a draw, which might have killed off a woman in Misfits boxing that actually ended her career because of that. This fight is 10 times worse than that. Now it goes to show you that Misfits boxing is not a legit sport for by means necessary. This just killed off a legend. An undefeated woman in Misfits boxing, never lost a fight, comes in her 30s against a Cinderella Lanier in this 4-round fight. And it's crazy. And at this time, around the 9:45, Amanda Serrano has already entered the building, as TikTok has already reported her being there as we speak. We're halfway through the fights of TikTok at the time. And this fight was horrible. So the first couple rounds comes in for Joey. Comes in, wins out the first round. And coming into the second round, she managed to close the gap as best they could. They're both landing out punches to each other. And again, Joey is not a knockout fighter, but she manages to outbox her opponent into the second. Two of the judges saw it differently. What I saw coming in halfway through the fight was Joey was winning the fight. Coming into the third round of this fight, Lanier is now bringing the fight to Polka, and she is defensively out of it. Like, she's irresponsible, consequently out of it. Polka is managing to walk her into shots. And then we get some huge overhands in the third. And then coming into the fourth, the commentary are arguing both 3 and 4 could be awarded to the underdog winner of Cinderella. Keep this in mind, Cinderella is 1-0 as well. Both of these girls have 1 win undefeated. Why would you do this? I don't know why they would book a Misfits woman taking on a woman that has a 1-0 record. I don't understand. Find a woman that's never fought in the big stage before, or something that you might think you can beat her, because this was not good. Cinderella puts in the best round. She outboxes Polka in the most dominant round of round 4. which was an easy round. I had it 38-38. Now Christy Rosario had it 39-37 for Joey. The other two judges, Martha Tremblay and Fernando, had it 39-37 as well. By winner, Cinderella, by split decision. Now, this wasn't a boring fight by all means, but due to the fact that this woman from Brazil, as a Misfits champion, this is 10 times worse than Elle Brooke versus Avenza and Page fight. I could not believe in my eyes that this is what we get for Misfits boxing. This is the end of a dead waste of time. If Misfits boxing dies this year, it's because of this. They killed off a fight that was just so good, and Joey DePoca effed it all up. This was utter embarrassment. And both of these girls were ranked over 140 in the super lightweight, and Cinderella is ranked 130 out of 191 boxers in BoxRec, and Joey 140. This was horrible. Cinderella, at this moment, I can't say much about her. I didn't really see much about her performances. This is just a waste of talent. I just don't see any championships in this fight. Nothing good to add. There's nothing good about this entire show. It's just so utter that two female boxers are in dead cahoots because of this incompetence of MVP Promotions just killing off so much. It's just so terrible to see this utterness. And then we get to our next fight. Envious Griffin versus Jackson Martinez. Now, Envious is 19-1, 18 knockouts. Jackson, 23-4, 11 knockouts. This right here is questioned as much because Griffin, this is a 10-round fight where last time Griffin in his last two fights were removed from an upset KO loss against Julian Rodriguez last year ago. So people are already now questioning that this might be the end of his run as we speak. Again, this was just an easy fight, but at this moment, I just wanted this entire show to come to an end because the fight's already starting as we speak, and it's already 10:15 p.m. I just want to get this fight over with. Of course, they both start out quietly, posing through starts of jabs from each other from each of the fight. Martinez, a close, good round for him in the first. The first couple rounds were somewhat interesting starters for Martinez. He was putting in defensive work, and even from the country of Dominican Republic, which are only two fighters did in this show, the female fight and this fight, I will say though, these fighters from Dominican Republic are putting on a surprising performance than I've ever expected. But I wouldn't say they were doing much better, but there were some interesting moments here in the show. Like Jackson Martinez is putting out overhands and other moments, and Griffin being in a hesitant formality here is not putting in great resurgences in the first couple rounds of the fight. Close rounds, but nothing much for clean shots still. But then comes into the third round, and he surprisingly now closes up the gap, puts out some successful clean shots in the distance for punching and ranges until the fourth round. There was a moment in the last 20 seconds of the fourth round where we get some great pressure from Griffin, putting out some outboxing removers, and Marinez is putting in counter punching abilities in here or there. But then we come into the fifth round where it comes to an end. The fifth round comes where a lot of shots are being thrown, but not being landed as much. And Griffin moving Martinez to the ring, pushing him, punching, and not trading punches, but putting in physical strength of evident. The crowd is cheering for this fight to come to an end. He puts out some short, huge rights on Griffin, puts him inside, just coming into the second minute of the round, and down goes Marinez with only 1 minute left of the round. Yeah, he puts out a couple good short rights here, there, and outboxes and puts him down. Marinez gets back up and puts in some clean shots. And the thing was, there were times that there might have been moments that none of the shots were clean, but we can't tell. But yeah, he gets back up. Griffin lands more combinations for barrage of punches, in my opinion. And in my eyes, I believe there could be barrage of punches. He puts out some more rights, puts more pressure. He puts a 1-2, a left hook downstairs, and that's enough to bring down Jackson again. He gets back up, finishes it without no problem in the fifth round. Ends it with a 10-7 score. Takes the lead by 3 points. Unfortunately, in between round 5 and 6, they check up Jackson, and they believe he will not answer the 6th round, giving it a cornerman retirement victory for Griffin, which is probably for the best, but because we just want the show to come to an end. So now with only 3 more fights left of the show, I'm just like, let's just get this over with, because at this moment, I'm already in cahoots when it comes to legit competition. This is just utter abysmal when I'm just watching this entire show go to shreds. Again, I was already expecting controversy and utter upsets, and this is what I was looking for. Like the first Jake Paul show, the Clarissa Shields fight last week ago, like, I'm surprised that the first half of this month hasn't been controversial, but in a way, but this right here is crazy enough. So the last 3 fights to go, the next fight will be WBA Super Bantamweight with Mayela Flores versus Melissa Mortensen. And then we'll have a lightweight fight, which is a 6-round fight with Jamel Harvey and Hamit Kawani. And the WBA and WBO featherweight title fight, unified. So let's get to that fight right now. So it's already 11 p.m. at this moment. We're coming into the fight. So we already know about Mayeli Flores, former WBA Super Bantamweight champion, is now coming in, fighting her best performance. She's doing the best she could to come in. Her other controversial fight and a controversial judging score with Ellie Scottney was bad enough last May. Not as terrible right now as the Dina Thorstwin, Trineka Johnson scorecard, but yeah. But again, I will say though, with all this being said, this fight right here got the crowd booing after the fight, and it does upset me. So Mayeli Flores is trying her best to try to make something happen to herself, make some comeback. With 4 knockouts in her career, she's trying to make something big, but she's barely been coming through close fights recently. Melissa Mortensen, boxing of her 9 pro fights from 2021 in her first pro fight in a 6-round decision, retired, went back amateur boxing until she went back to pro in October of 2024. She fought a couple fights that year, won by second and first round KO. Her 4th pro fight was a tough fighter with a 8-2 record in March 2025, and then scored her 3rd knockout in an 8th and final round knockout in April. Won an 8-round contest with no problem against a journeyman fighter and another fighter in September by a 5th round knockout and a 4th round knockout in December. Her last fight in January the 31st, which was against a 7-1 fighter named Tori Ellis, which she knocked her down in the 4th round, but went 8 rounds of decision. Tori Ellis did score a couple rounds onto Mortensen, which might have been a little bit, maybe the toughest fight in Mortensen's career. It's the same night where Jacob Bank defeated William Skull for the WBO Global Super Middleweight and Dina Thorstwin winning the WBC Interim World Featherweight title, making her comeback. So Yeah, not bad for Mortison here. And again, I wouldn't really say much about it because that might have been one of the first hard, tough promotional fights in her career. And even though she was fighting in a couple of fights, she did fought a few fights in arenas, but not in major promotions as much, except that last fight. So in her first 9 pro fights, she's had zero problems, and she hasn't been tested one bit, even though a couple of her wins have been tested, but nothing much. So this fight against Mayela Flores for a world title in her 10th pro fight, I really did found that to be, this was going to be a squash match. I really found this to be a win for Mayeli, but don't count on it yet. So we come into the first round, and surprisingly, with great moments, closing the gap with first starts in the fight were a good start for the pressure from a good wing of power shots into the fight. Mortison got a good start off, keeping her opponent off. It was the first round that started with just similarities. But again, I will say though, Mortison put in a good pressure. These girls were starting in first gear. That's what it looked like. Like the first round was mostly they were just staying in first gear for now before they started shifting in the 5th gear, because it would get crazier later on. And then we come in to the second round, and out of nowhere, Mortison putting out great right hand counter shots, walking into her. She was doing a good job in the second round of the fight. She really was. Great start hooks from Flores, which unfortunately sent Mortison down to the canvas. The first time ever knocked down in her career. And this was the second round. So seeing Mortison get knocked down really surprised me. But she does get back up, still landing out shots, power shots. Again, there were left hooks connected and other facing other moments in the fight. But yeah, a 10-8 score for Flores, and this would be the time where this fight would become the starter of a great fight. So we come into the third round of the fight, and Mortison in round 3 and 4 gives us the great performance of the entire fight. She comes into round 3 and puts out better moments. She's walking Flores into power punches, combinations. And again, these girls are trading in punches back and forth. And that's the only offensive out approach for Mortison. We do get some monster overhand and other moments of overhand Deontay Wilders and such here or there. And again, I'm surprised that Mortison stayed alive in that 4th round, but she still did a better job putting in the performance in the 4th round, barely. Fun fact, even on yahoo.com, the sports, Darshan Desai, the person that was posting updated information of each round of this fight, believed that round 4 was for Mayeli when he wrote, monster overhand right from Flores in the final minute, landed clean shot on Mortison. How did she stay up from that one? There were still some other offensive punches by Mortison in that 4th round that I think Darshan completely ignored. I believe round 4 was a good round for Mortison. Again, round 5 was a good round for Flores, because he did say, quote, Flores rocked Mortison in the last 15 seconds of the 5th round, overhand right, 2 more strong rights, connected as Mortison desperately tried to hold and survive the frame, power from Flores and providing consequential. What I saw was pretty much an interesting start for Mortison. She did put in other pressure into the first minute, and then both of them were trading punches. And then coming into the final seconds, it was a great finale for Flores, so I got to agree with him there. But it only gets crazy because this is a close fight after all. Like, I found the score after 5 rounds because of the knockout. I found it to be 47-47 even. And even though people were expecting this fight to be a draw, but because Flores scored a knockout on Mortison, I didn't believe Morrison had what it takes to be in a big grand stage like this, because if Guadalupe, Medina, and Joey Polka couldn't handle the situation in a promotion for Jake Paul, there's no way Morrison could do the same. And yes, I get it. Dina Thorswin was the Danish fighter. She's the undisputed champion a couple weeks ago. And Morrison, also from Denmark, as Danish, could make history as becoming the 9th boxer in Danish history to become champion boxing, and the 3rd woman to do that. So, but again, that's just going to be hard history to believe in. We come into the 6th round and the 7th round, and again, Mayeli puts in some close competition. Like the 6th round and the 7th round were both tough rounds to begin with for both girls, trading out huge power shots. They were going into 3rd gear so much coming into the fight that they were putting out power shots that I can't really explain how. Like, it was just, they were that dangerously good for what it was. They were crowning each other so much, banking on shots. And after the end of that was crazy enough. So, it was a pretty close run for cover, just for what it was. And at this moment, Flores comes into the 7th round, which was this moment. They start slowing down the pace, which Darshan also pointed into the 7th and 8th round, which is why he gave the other 2 rounds to Morrison for 7 and 8. I would have to say Flores did got round 7. Round 8, probably Morrison. So, that's just my opinion. But again, Morrison wasn't content to fight on the back foot, which is the problem. Flores continuing to apply pressure, but mostly what Darshan said. Like, he did point that out in the questionable box here. What did I wrote? Both of them starting off slow paced. I guess, pace is slow down is what he said. And again, back foot. And of course, Morrison is now giving Mayella free opportunities. Morrison gets the 7th round, but in the 8th round, Morrison does better than ever in the 8th round. It was pretty close. I will say, though, the championship rounds were the most entertaining of them all, because coming after the end of the 8th round of the fight, the 9th round comes in and we see some heavy-duty action. In the 9th round, Morrison is now adding out huge pressure. Flores is pressuring up with power punching and huge, big shots. But I will say, though, there were a lot of misses and counterpunch misses going on here. Again, these girls were trading out shots like never before. And I found this boxing match to be a lot entertainingly than Mizuki Hiruda versus May Sullivan. Seriously. This fight was so entertaining that coming into the 9th round, I had the score 85-85. So this fight was so close for each competition that I was surprised of what was going on for the end. But no, we come into the 10th and final round, and Mayeli Flores ends it with dangerous rights, upstairs, downstairs. It doesn't matter what it was. Mayeli Flores dominated the 10th and final round, which was actually the better round for Mayeli of the entire fight. Yes, the 2nd round was an easy round because it was a knockout, but this round was far better. This 10th round was far better than the 2nd round, in my opinion, for Mayeli. By far. She was adding so much pressure, putting in dangerous combinations, and controls the fight to end it with a bang. Which is why I ended it with a 95-94 score for Mayeli. But what I will say, though, is that even though I did had Morrison as a lucky factor, you do got to say to yourself that there's no way that Morrison might have won the fight as much. Because, again, the knockout in round 2 was tough enough. I had 95-94, and all 3 of the other judges also had 95-94. However, Judge Carla Kais had it 95-94 for Mayeli. David Sullivan and Zachary Young, they favored their 95-94 for Melissa Morrison. your new WBA Super Bantamweight Championship. What a fight. And I gotta say, this has to be the best fight during the third week. Maybe a lot more better than Clarissa Shields versus Kay Scott, in my opinion. And even though, for all that being said, and even though the fight did end around almost 11:30 because they announced the winner before 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it was a pretty good fight. And Darshan Desai did pointed on Yahoo Sports, quote, less than 2 weeks after Dina Thorson became undisputed bantamweight, the Denmark has crowned another world champion in women's boxing, with Mortensen defeating Flores 95-94 by all three judges, two of them favoring it by split decision to one to capture WBA Super Bantamweight title. I give this match a 10 out of 10. These girls started out in first gear. They went around second to third and fifth gear during the half of it. They did slow down their pace to go down to second gear during the other parts of the fight, but in the last couple rounds of the fight, with each gear going back up, they were in a back and forth action. This was a back and forth competition like never before. And with the scorecards reading 95-94, which is like watching Rocky Balboa, the movie in 2006 with Mason Dixon, I'll say this was like a real Rocky movie. And seeing as a Denmark fighter, even though my score was 95-94, depending on who you believe would have won the fight, even though, again, there were times that Mortensen did actually won like 3 or 4 easy rounds in the fight, and, well, mostly like 5 or so, it was a hard fights of judging to deal with, because I think it just goes to show you that it is a hard fight to judge when you look at it. And it kind of stinks because after they announced the winner, the crowd did not like the decision one bit. And looking back at it, I understand. Mayeli is Mexican, but Mexico is an American continent for North America. So I can understand that. She has boxed in America, and this Danish woman comes out of nowhere and becomes champion. It stinks, but I really can't argue about that in any sort of gratitude. I just can't. It is what it is, but this is an interesting story field moment, and I can't argue about that. So I just accept it for what it is, because even though, like with Lupita Medina and Joey Polka, even though both of those girls failed their opportunities horribly as a bust for hype, and even though Mortensen is somewhat, I wouldn't say she's a hype job, but with this win right here, she is going to be a target for other more tougher women out there. So I guess she better be careful, because it's going to be a doozy. Because even though her first 9 pro fights were easy wins, now we're understanding her weaknesses in this fight. So I think Mortensen does have to be careful to start learning her mistakes in this fight if she wants to defend her belt. So I wish Mortensen best of luck in the future. Does she have what it takes to win 15 more fights to make it to a Dina Thorson record? 25-0 is better than 50-0, so why not? Just like it's like, don't get me wrong, like, you don't have to have an undefeated record for 50-0. Just do whatever. 25-0. Just like Alexander Usyk. Anyway, we come into 11:30 p.m., the co-feature main event, which I'm going to call it the semi-main event. The 2024 U.S. Olympian Jamel Harvey, 3-0 with 2 knockouts, versus Hamit Keb is a 7-2-1 with 6 knockouts. This is just a 6-round fight. Nothing much to be added for. Technically, this entire fight was nothing much but just a waste of time. Again, I really wish we can take some of these fights out of the card, because if we just get rid of the Kino Marley fight, which was a good knockout fight, don't get me wrong, but get rid of that 4-round fight, get rid of this fight that we're about to talk about right now, and then talk about, just put 10 fights on this show. Like, I think this fight would have started at 11 p.m. If they were going to start the show on, put the main event for Amanda Serrano, this fight would have happened maybe around 11 p.m. So it does upset me that it took us a long friggin' time to get this fight going underway. Again, this was a 6-round fight. I was like, take it home, just to forget about it. The first round was just a dangerous start for Jamel, who worked on body shots downstairs, busting Keb's nose just to bloody up his face in the first round. And I'm like, take it home. And that's what they did. They come into the second round, and coming with only a few seconds in the round, he pushes him forward. He goes off a short left hook, sets up a counter cross or a hook, whatever you like to call it, and puts him down. And the referee stops the fight just because we want to take it home. But again, his face was bloody, so it was a good stoppage because at this moment, it didn't matter. Again, there was no point of adding this match as a co-main event because we have to wait for more minutes of the fight. It's ridiculous. Don't get me wrong, the knockouts of this fight in men's boxing is pretty devastating, but again, I just can't say much about it. They had to take their fighter out as best they could, and the fight was being built up so much. The main event was coming just at 11:45. At 11:56 p.m., Darshan puts out the main event is coming. Serrano is tied with Christy Martin with the most knockouts in women's boxing at 32 knockouts. She wants to break the record before retirement, and they are ready for the main feature event at 12:05 a.m. This fight should have started at 11 p.m. What are you doing? And by the way, this is a 12-round fight. 2 minutes, not 3 minutes, 2 minutes in 12 rounds. And guess what happens? Well, we might as well talk about it because this fight became the most ridiculous fight in mankind. It really did, because this fight broke me. This fight broke me so much. I just felt so frustrated that I had to watch a ridiculous performance of Amanda Serrano. Because here's the thing. This Argentinian woman has 14 wins, 4 losses, and 7 knockouts. Her first couple defeats was against a fighter with a 2-0 record in a round 5 TKO defeat. Loses by split decision and a unanimous decision against a couple other fights. Loses by knockout in 2023 in the third round. These fighters aren't that much to talk about. Well, some were legit. She did have an interesting win in her career for the WBO Latino title in March. But again, that's about it. And all we saw was legit stupidity in Serrano. This proves Serrano goofed herself up so much, she turned herself into a fighter that did not want to be there. The first rounds of the fight, the first 3 rounds of the fight were so utter stupidity. It's kind of ridiculous that you're seeing these females win the first. Is it just me, or is this a curse? Because when watching this, I was talking to myself, saying to myself, what am I going to talk about in this next episode, as I'm doing right now, thinking, oh, great. So Guadalupe Medina wins a couple rounds and then loses the others. Joey Polka wins the first couple rounds, in my opinion, and then loses the other rounds, and they lose those fights. Manzur wins the first couple rounds, pushing Serrano early, connecting out with shots, behind with back with jabs. Serrano is walking so much into combinations that she goes downstairs, but nothing much. Puts out 2 shots, comes into the second round, puts out encouragement, heavy out clinches. We do get a little bit of clipping jabs going on here with balances and huge tactics because Serrano changes the tactics. She's off balance in the second round. And I'm watching this and I'm like, dang, this is what Amanda Serrano is? Like, no wonder she lost against Katie Taylor 3 times and the judges favored her in those fights. Serrano didn't have the power. I knew that she didn't have that much in the second fight, but in my opinion, I think she barely won that second fight. It's ridiculous. Horrible trilogy. Again, Serrano does come into the third round. She does put out some good shots, good lefts, and best she could to put out some jabs. Again, she does what she does. She's finally winning the third round. And then we come into the fourth round and it gets bloody. She hammers her so much, pours out blood, real blood. Not even a minute into the round, we get some huge heavy hitter bloods. Huge punches, clinches, pushing again, punches. She's putting Amanda Serrano to the ropes. Corners, whether neutral corners, her corner or their corner, clockwise, it doesn't matter. Now she's bleeding to the head. We have a cut to the forehead. I don't know which one. And Serrano is getting outboxed. She's not getting nothing done. It's such an embarrassment to see this performance. She is outboxing this. She's outboxing a champion, trying to fight for Christy Martin's record, for crying out loud. This match was supposed to be booked as take this fight home, end it with a bang, and let's go home. That's not what we saw. What we saw was utter stupidity for competence in the entirety of this fight. And it just got worse because this is like how the time when Tyson Fury took on the MMA fighter a few years ago. And that guy took his time and he took it calmly in the final rounds of the fight because he thought he won the fight. But two of the judges favored Tyson Fury to win. That was his fault for losing the fight. Yeah, just because you're in a comfortable lead doesn't mean that you should continue fighting. Yeah, good job, Francis Ngannou. Good job. It's ridiculous. So that's what we get. We get it from the fourth. And after the fifth and sixth round, where Serrano does manage to put out more success and majorityness, moving from overhand rights and such, it didn't stop Manzur to win out the sixth round as best she could, knocking Serrano back to the head. And she does it again. The first half of the fight is 4-2 in my opinion for Manzur, and then she wins the fifth round after 7 rounds, putting in so much. And again, here's the problem for Manzur. I'm not saying that Manzur is telegraphing her moves as much, but again, I think Serrano knows that she's not changing her strats as much because she's not avoiding the two. Because again, Manzur is always with those 2-shot combinations. Those were the only things that she could do in the fight. And I don't know why Serrano could not figure that strategy up sooner than later before the first half of the fight. She gets outboxed so much, buckling under her knees. Like, Serrano is buckling everything. It's ridiculous. So yeah, 5 rounds after 7 rounds of fighting. That's not bad, right? Well, guess what? This is a 12-round fight. This is not a 12-round. This is not a 10-round fight. If this was a 10-round fight, Manzur, in my opinion, might have won the fight. Or maybe not, because Serrano, from rounds 8 to 12, oh boy, guess what? She outworks out all of the pressure on. I just can't understand how ridiculous this entirety of this show was. It's so unbelievable. I was so shocked by the utter disparity of craziness because in round 8 was just so much like watching a comeback story coming out of nowhere. Serrano finally gets the urge to change up her stance and then finally puts in some works into the 8th round. Now even though Manzur is trying to push her back as best she could, now she's finally throwing barrage of punches. She's putting out multitude of counter punches from left hooks. Like, we are getting left hooks and right hooks from Manzur, but not much, as now she's walking in with overhand rights, and now we're getting combination scores by Serrano coming into it. she's now making some movements. She's putting into the 9th round. She's taken leading mid shots as best she could. And at this moment, after the end of round 10, where she manages to, even though Manzur did manage to collect some jabs once in a while, and a good right once in a while, and a great left hook, Serrano is putting in body shots, body work, and into the entirety of the fight. Because now Serrano's strategy is now changing into a more tactical work of body punching and pushing her opponent back. Again, there are clinches in the fights and other stuff happening, so I can't say much about that. But yeah, both girls are putting in the pressure like never before. And after 10 rounds of boxing, the fights scored a tie. We come into the 11th round, and again, Serrano, even though Manzur is still going forward, trying to get a lucky punch, maybe a knockout, Serrano is not throwing power punches as much. Her punches are so slow, and she is trying to get some leverages, but she gets the final 2 rounds of the fight, dominating the last 2 without no problem. Yes, there's punches hitting her. The blood isn't getting into her face as much anymore, so that's okay, but still, it does make you wonder for that outcome. Again, she's out boxing, out punching, landing out shots once in a while. But again, her defensive work is still a problematic into the championship rounds. And Manzur still found the opportunity to land out punches on Serrano and even power punches. And Serrano is out landing worked punches as much as she could. Again, the last few rounds were entertaining because it makes you wonder, are we going to see a knockout? But no, Serrano does not go for a knockout. I scored the fight 115 to 113. Heck, even one person thought it was a 116 to 112 victory for Manzur. Not for Manzur, but for Serrano. I was 115 to 113 for Serrano. And again, Dan Rafael. So Dan Rafael on commentary went on to mostly for TikTok, and he wrote, 12 rounds, Serrano doesn't get the record KO, and if the scoring is legit, she won't get the win either. She did better in the last few rounds, but Manzur seemed to be so far ahead of 8-4. Manzur would be a fine score. So Dan Rafael believes that Manzur won by 4 points, 8 rounds to 4. Maybe a 6 round, maybe a draw, but again, those, don't get me wrong, even though the 8th round would be a close round for a 6-6 even score, I could see that. Not 8-4 for Manzur. Maybe 7-5, I don't know, but the judges wouldn't see it that way. Well, Martha Tremblay would score it 114 even, but Christy Rosario and Fernando Villarreal had it 116 to 112, favored by majority decision, Amanda Serrano. Amanda Serrano, who has held on to the WBO featherweight title since 2019, the only professional boxer in both male and female gender. She is still the only boxer to ever become champion and to still defend her title while winning that title in the 2010s. She's the last fighter to still hold on to that title, even in the 2010s. The only boxer. She is the long-reigning winner, holding the record for the longest reigns ever. So take that for what you will. Again, all I have to say about this entire show is that no matter what, I do see some probabilities here because I wish we should have seen more to this, because I'm not saying that Dan Rafael is wrong. The fight is controversial because of what Serrano did. And even though Luciano Jornet also went on the post believing that Serrano won 115 to 113 win, which, yeah, even though the fans did have their own opinions about that. And even though Serrano did say that, even though she does continue to hint her retirement, saying that she is almost out of the game, thank God, and believes that she has one more fight left to break Christy Martin's KO record. said by Darshan. I will say this though, even though seeing Manzur's reaction and seeing how obvious that you're in America, like this woman's from South America, and Serrano is holding her finger up in the air, and of course she can already tell that this was legit. Serrano picks up her 50th win, which I would have said would have been a great finale, but even though Serrano is not the knockout fighter that we used to see anymore, I will say this though, that she does have to, in my opinion, start learning more than she already is. Because, in my opinion, I do think that she is actually not much into her prime anymore. But again, here's my final thoughts before I end this episode. Amanda Serrano, in my opinion, she's not really, in my opinion, the greatest fighter than maybe Christy Martin. Not better than Katie Taylor or Layla Ali or Ann Wolfe, Vonda Ward, Natasha Ragazzini, Dina Thorswin, for that matter. Again, there's a lot of moments in this show, but I think, in my opinion, I just didn't really ask for this. Technically, even though Serrano is 37 years old and her opponent is 27 years old, and even as a southpaw fighter for Serrano, I can't say that this was a legit fight for her. This was just one of her many fighters that she should have won by knockout. And I'm not saying that it was possible that Serrano could picture retirement right now. She has one fight left. It better be a fighter that she can easily win by knockout, and she better not take it seriously. But fighting in the grand promotional stage like Jake Paul Promotions, it's ridiculous because we have 4 female fights out of 7 professional female fights. 5 of them, we have 5 that have become so controversial in their way. Like, Ayana barely defeated her opponent, Miguelina Hernandez, in that featherweight fight by split decision. Mayeli Flores lost against Mortensen by the crowd booing. And even though I do give this Serrano and Lucia fight a 7 out of 10 due to its incompetence of its stupidity, and even though the comeback for Serrano is somewhat questionable because her winning the last rounds in Manzur and such, and again, I do find that questionable. And even though given that fight 7 rounds to 7, scoring the fight 7 out of 10 is not better than Melissa Mortensen's title win. The title fights were controversial. Ayana Verduzco, Guadalupe Medina, Joey Polka. 5 of the 7 female fights, if you ignore the Albina fight, which was the only female to win by knockout in the preliminary fights, Joycelyn Camarillo, easy win. 5 out of 7 of these female fights turn into disastrous moments, and I'm not saying that Mortensen deserved to win the fight, even though I thought Mayeli did win the fight, but again, but still, again, these fights are so, it's pretty surprising to see this. It really is. And after Carlos Utria and his win on the Lopez and Romero card and how he barely won that fight, it just goes to show you how being in the grand stage of professional boxing in venues by great promoters, this goes to show you how tough it is to be in the professional boxing world. Even if you do box multiple fights as best you could, depending on what venues you're performing in, whether they're clubs, basketball courts, or other stuff. Because just like Rocky Balboa said in the first movie, when the promoter said he would like you to fight Apollo Creed, and Rocky said no. And because Rocky said, well, it might not be a good fight because I fight in smaller venues, it's not going to be a good fight. Hey, I agree with Rocky Balboa. I can understand that. And even though the promoter did say to him, well, hey, did you know Apollo Creed? He likes you. He's seen you fight. Sure he did. If he did, then Apollo would have taken the fight seriously, just like he did in the second fight. Yeah. So that just goes to show you how hard it is to be in this events of boxing. But I'm going to take it easy. Next week, I'm going to review the entirety of August the 29th. I'll upload it on the 1st of September. See you in the month of September. And with that being said, we will be right back. Take it easy, everyone.